Hello, everybody, and welcome into the voice of college football on Mark Rogers TV. Can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel, guys. We're trying to grow a bigger brand here at Mark Rogers TV and especially the Texas channel. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Again, it really helps out the channel. Go over to the Texas channel. If you're watching on the Big 12 channel, subscribe there. Go over to the Big 12 channel. If you're watching on the Texas channel, subscribe there. I'm here every Tuesday, 7:30 to 8, somewhere in between there. I like to get people settled in, settled down. And then can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe, like I said again. But I'm here every Tuesday, pregame, postgame. I'm here after every game talking Texas football. A lot to talk about this week heading into the week going against BYU, those Mormons from Utah. Nothing against Mormons. For some reason people despise them, hate them. I have nothing wrong with Mormons, but people do make fun of them. Thank you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe again. Also, before we get started, go over to ticketsmarter.com if it will show, and go over and type in code BIG for $10 off a purchase of $100 or more, or type in code BIG20 for a purchase of $300 or more. You get $20 off of that. So please do that, guys. Also, subscribe to the SEC channel. I almost said ESPN. Don't subscribe to their channel. Go over to the Big 12 channel. Subscribe there as well. Like I said, we're done with the homework portion of this, guys. Now we'll get into the football. Again, this is Texas Tuesdays, number 18, with your host, Matthew Miller. And let's talk about Texas and Houston. Recap this game a little bit. So Quinn Ewers plays about 3/4 of football, 2.5 quarters of football, goes 23 of 29, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. Very efficient, very effective when he was in the game, when he wasn't hurt with that sprained AC joint. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It is a big injury, but some things on Twitter that were pulled up and I kind of saw and I didn't like. I saw some things early in the game that I liked from Quinn Ewers. Some of the stuff later in the game kind of scared me. You know, he had guys open and he was just not willing to pull the trigger for whatever reason. To me, that's trusting your eyes. He did not trust his eyes for whatever reason, and he gets in trouble with that sometimes. So maybe someone like Malik Murphy, and this is just hope, guys, can come in and he trusts his eyes a little bit more, and that can be a good thing. It could be a bad thing because let me tell you, there's some mistakes he could possibly make that Quinn Ewers won't make, but there's also some throws that he's willing to make that Quinn Ewers was not willing to make. And I think that's a good and bad situation here. We'll have to see. Jonathan Brooks does the damn thing again. 20 carries, 99 yards, about 5 yards per carry. Receiving wise, he added 58 yards or 51 yards onto that on 8 catches. He was our leading receiver reception wise, second in yards. The guy's gone over 90. We'll say this now. This is the new thing. 99 yards, 5 games in a row. The guy's been a stud. I've been praising him for the last year and a half. I thought he'd be better than Bijan Robinson stats-wise. Guess what, guys? He is better than Bijan Robinson right now, statistical-wise. Talent-wise, he's not. Bijan Robinson is an ultimate talent that was drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft. That's not going to be Jonathan Brooks, and there's no issue with that. There's very few Bijan Robinson runnings around. That guy's an alien. Sucks that he didn't get to play this week for whatever reason. That hasn't been clear in the NFL. Obviously, someone said the dumbest thing. They said, oh, it must be like an attitude problem. He got benched. Bijan Robinson, you could show me a video of him killing someone, and I wouldn't believe the video. That guy is way too nice of a human, way too good of a human. There was no way that was going to be a character issue. It was going to be what it was, a headache, and that's what it's going to come out, what it has come out to be. I don't know if I believe that, but it's definitely some type of illness, in my opinion. Next up, Xavier Worthy, 6 catches, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. He was the other guy that caught, the other guy that caught the touchdown was A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell, let me talk about him. I like A.D. Mitchell. I think A.D. Mitchell's a good player. A.D. Mitchell's going to play in the NFL. A.D. Mitchell will probably be a 2nd or 3rd round pick in the NFL, maybe sneak into the 1st round. He is so inconsistent with his play, guys. He can go 1 week be great, the next week be very, very average. And 1 catch to me is not good enough for A.D. Mitchell. This guy needs to have 5 to 7 catches a game. It is not good enough. He has to be better. His 1 catch was a touchdown, but after the 1st quarter and that touchdown, he disappeared completely. You really only saw him a couple times throughout the game, and he didn't make plays. He just was not good enough. A.D. Mitchell has to be better. He does. On the other side, Xavier Worthy played very well. That was the best ball Quinn Ewers has thrown as a Texas Longhorn down the sideline to Xavier Worthy in stride for a touchdown. And Xavier Worthy was good. 92 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. Jatavian Sanders, was the third leading receiver, 2 receptions, 29 yards. He's either hurt or he's got to be hurt because he should be putting up way better numbers than that. And he was hurt. We know coming into the last couple of weeks. I was surprised he played in the Oklahoma game after hurting his ankle versus Baylor. But he did, and he honestly wasn't that good in that game. So he wasn't that good in this game either. So I wouldn't be shocked if the injury is worse than he's letting on. And honestly, Gunnar Helm is good enough right now where I think Gunnar Helm, which I didn't think 3 weeks ago, could probably play and play well enough and as good, if not better, than Ja'Tavion Sanders has been playing. Because Ja'Tavion Sanders is not playing up to what I know he's capable of. I think he's the second best player, or second best tight end in college football. I think he's the best tight end prospect. I know I'm going to get hate for that because Brock Bowers, but I think Ja'Tavion Sanders actually translate better than the NFL. I might be wrong on that. We'll see. But either way, he's top 2. There's no debate about that. And it really sucks to see him playing like this last couple weeks. On the defensive side of the ball, not enough consistent pressure. We had 3 sacks, one by Jalen Ford that caused a fumble. That was a big play in the game. One by Ethan Burke, and then one by Alfred Collins. And Alfred Collins is super inconsistent, guys. That guy can flash one play, disappear the next 3 or 4. I mean, he is what he is at this point. He's a senior. I don't expect to get much from him. He'll play in the NFL just because he's going to test off the charts at the combine. But he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be a rotational player for the next 6-7 years. And he'll probably end up with like 20 to 25 sacks in his NFL career, but he'll still make some decent money. But he's never going to be what we wanted him to be. He's not going to be Chase Young. He's not going to be those guys, the Bosa brothers. I mean, Chris Ash came out and said when he was at Texas a couple years ago that Alfred Collins was just as talented as the Bosas and Chase Young, and you see what he has done. He's not. Sorry, the production doesn't meet up with the talent. So it's wrong. He's just not. And I'm done believing in him. Michael Taft, you can say what you want about the guy, but he does make some pretty big plays. He made that interception in the red zone where Houston could have taken the lead, and he prevented that from happening. So good job by him. He was the leading tackler in this game. But let's be honest here. He was the leading tackler because we were getting beat deep, and he was there to be the last man standing. And he got beat a lot of that times too, and then recovered and made the tackle. So that's not a good thing to me. To me, when our team is running as well as it was early in the season on defense, your leading tackler needs to be one of the linebackers in Benda and Ford or Anthony Hill or Ja'Day Barron. Those are the 4 guys because that means that it's not getting deep down the field. If you're getting deep down the field, you're going to have Michael Taft, Jaron Thompson, Jalen Catalon when he does come back. Those guys will be leading in tackles, and you don't want to see that in this Texas defense. You want to see the linebackers flying around making plays, and then Ja'Day Barron in the nickel. By the way, he is our best player. I think you saw that when we were struggling, he was off the field. When we weren't struggling, he was on that field. He made the play harder on 4th down where they didn't convert, where it had to be basically perfect because he read that play. So he's our best player on defense by far. Donovan Smith, guys, let's talk about Houston a little bit in this game as well. Played great. 378 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, like I said, to Michael Taft. And I told people, I like Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith's going to be in the NFL. I don't know how good he's going to be. I don't know how long he's going to be there, but he will be in the NFL at some point in his life. I can tell you that much. He'll probably be a backup, and depending on his work ethic, he could be a Colt McCoy where he's there the next 10 to 12 years, makes a decent amount of money, and never really plays in spot situations. Or if he doesn't have great work ethic, he's got a good enough arm, he throws the ball well enough, he'll be there for 2-3 years, then he'll be out of the league. Still make decent enough money, though. And I also said he did have 4 rushing touchdowns coming to this game. He does not like to run, though, guys. He is a pocket passer. And that's exactly what in this game. He stood in the pocket, and the announcers, who I despise, and Spencer Tillman, Tim Brando, all of us Texas fans despise, especially Tim Brando. I already went off on a rant on him after the game. If you want to go see that, go see it. I would love for someone to clip that, make that go big, and then it shows up on Tim Brando's front doorstep. I hate that man. Anyways, Donovan Smith, they kept bringing up that he would run. And I said, no, he's not going to run. He's going to sit in the pocket. The only way he's running is if something's wide open, which we didn't allow. We actually overplayed the running of the quarterback. We overcompensated because of what Dylan Gabriel did to us. Dylan Gabriel torched us for 113 yards, and we said, that's not going to happen again. And we did this with Donovan Smith, where we forced him in the pocket and threw. Now, Donovan Smith will run on you, but it has to be wide open, and it usually has to be in the red zone because he likes to go for touchdowns because guess what? When you get in the end zone, the play's over. You can't really get hit. For the play to end, when you're running, you either have to slide or get out of bounds. I don't think he's fast enough to outrun anyone on our defense, so he was never going to get out of bounds. It was all about sliding at that point, and you could get hit from behind and lose the ball. So that, I think that was always in the back of his mind, and he was never just going to take off and run because that's not who he is, and he's not a Blazer. He's never been a Blazer. He never will be. Um, he's a very good thrower, and he showed that again. 378 yards, and we over pursued. We need to find a happy medium of, okay, this guy's a runner, stay in our lanes, but don't just stick to the lanes because then that leaves throwing lanes behind you. Be able to adapt on the fly. And we just did not do that in this game, and that was a big part of the game, in my opinion, guys. Matthew Golden, stud. I wish we had him. 12.6 yards per catch, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns on 7 receptions. He played great. And then the guy that I said would be the key to the game for Houston, and he kind of was. He was moving the chains. He hit us with big plays. Joseph Manjack. He had a touchdown. He had 58 yards receiving on 6 catches. He's a good player. I really like him. He's like a tight end wide receiver hybrid. I liked him when I watched him on some tape, especially in the West Virginia game. And he came and showed up and played very well. He played very well in this game. I would not shock me to see him play in the NFL either. I think him and Golden are both going to play in the NFL. Samuel Brown also added 4 receptions for 80 yards and 20 yards per catch. And then they had 3 sacks as well. Jamari Caldwell had 2 sacks, and Nelson Caesar, who we actually kept pretty quiet, only had 1 sack. And I said if Houston was going to beat you, they almost did, they were going to cause havoc at the line of scrimmage. They do have a couple good pass rushers, and David Ugwegba, who really didn't make much of a difference in this game other than the hit on Quinn, which didn't turn out to be the hit that injured him. That was actually a Nelson Caesar sack. And they were going to cause turnovers. Luckily for us, they didn't cause turnovers, but they did they matched us in sacks. So if they would have gotten an interception or a fumble in this game, they'd probably beat us, because I said if they match us in those categories, they would win, and they almost did that, guys. So props to Houston for being able to do that. But thank God they got a bad spot. And listen, can you complain about that? Of course you can complain. You can complain all you want. There were bad calls in this game on both sides. There's multiple angles where there's like 3 egregious holding calls against Texas. There's one on the big play. I forget who it went to, but it was Donovan Smith was backed up in his own end zone, and Barron Sorrell's getting choked around the neck, and that should have been a holding. It would have been at the 1, so they would all had the ball on the 1-yard line. So like they ended up getting like 40 yards on that play, so around midfield. So, I mean, there's plays like that too, guys. So I don't want to hear any complaining from either team. Yeah, it was a bad spot. There was a spot early in their game where it was 5 yards short and they gave them a first down. Literally 5 yards short. You can go look this up. It's crazy. Houston got a first down being like 4 to 5 yards short. So that game is in the bag. Texas does escape. Texas does win. And now we move on to BYU, the Cougars from Utah, and they're a pretty good team, guys. I think people are sleeping on them. I don't think they'll beat us, but I think it'll be a more competitive game than Vegas has, which I believe the spread right now it was opened at 20.5. I think it's like 17.5 or 18 points. I think that's too many, especially with Malik Murphy in his first start. Thank God it is at home, because if this is on the road with Malik Murphy, it's upset central. It's upset central special if that was the case, but it's not. Thank God we are at DKR. So BYU, let's preview this game. BYU comes in at 5-2, 2-2 overall in the Big 12. They have 2 wins versus Cincinnati and Texas Tech. They have 2 losses versus Kansas and TCU. Kansas, very good team. TCU, not a very good team. Honestly, I think TCU and BYU are pretty similar. They play up and down in competition periodically, periodically throughout the season. And if you've seen that with BYU, 27.6 points per game, 74th in the country offensively, 24.3 points per game, 61st in the country defensively. So they're kind of just average, honestly, on both sides of the ball. There's nothing special here. And when I looked at Keaton Slovis' numbers, I like Keaton Slovis. I thought he had potential to play in the NFL. Now that I'm seeing the stats and the tape I watched, I'm not sure. He may get drafted in like the 6th or 7th round, but that's a maybe at this point, guys. 56.7 or 6% completion percentage on 6.7 yards per attempt, which is not good. 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So he's keeping the ball clean, but to me, he's checking down too much. He's not forcing the ball downfield. And I think this was probably put into him by the BYU staff that we're going to be conservative, keep the ball, not going to force anything downfield, so we keep the ball and not create turnovers, because our defense, honestly, isn't as good as it used to be, especially coming into the Big 12. You kind of have a talent gap there. They do have some good players, a couple good guys that we'll talk about that will play in the NFL, but they don't have as many as the other Big 12 teams, because guess what? You haven't been recruiting like a Big 12 team, so I wouldn't expect that. Next up, honestly weak at the running back position as well. LJ Martin, 4.6 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, 1 receiving. That's not good enough. It's just not. And to beat Texas, no one's run on us. Houston ran for 20. Let's see, I have it written down. They ran for 28 yards in this game, guys. 28 yards. So the only team that's been able to run on us was Oklahoma, and that was only because of Dylan Gabriel. So unless you have someone that's willing to take risk with their legs and be able to trick defenders with their eyes and then eventually escape the pocket and go downfield, you're not going to do that. No offense, Keaton Slovis. That man is a statue back there. He's not capable of doing that. People were talking about worried about Donovan Smith, and I thought maybe he'd have 20, 30 yards of rushing max. Keaton Slovis ain't getting that. Keaton Slovis there could be no guys on the field within 20 yards of him, and he still wouldn't get 20 yards because we would make up that ground. He'd probably end up getting 4 to 5 yards. He is very slow. And LJ Martin with 4.6 yards per carry, I don't expect him to do much either. I could see him breaking off a couple in the passing game because he's a decent receiver back there, but that's about it. To me, the guy to watch out for BYU is Isaac Rex. He's their tight end. 23 catches, 316 yards, 1 touchdown for him, 13.7 yards per catch. He's a very good tight end. He will play in the NFL, and you got to be careful of him. Chase Roberts has 430 yards and 4 touchdowns and 29 receptions at the wide receiver position. So those are their two big weapons, but I think Isaac Rex is the biggest mismatch. Our weaknesses are linebackers and safeties in coverage. If they can get Isaac Rex one-on-one with some of our linebackers or safeties in coverage, I think Isaac Rex can take advantage of our linebackers and safeties and maybe bust a couple plays. Guys, we're hurt. We are. On the back end, Ryan Watts, hopefully can come back this week. There's been talk that he will. Jalen Catalon is week to week. Ethan Burke limped off the field. I know he's defensive end, but he does affect the pass game still because he's one of our best pass rushers. He is week to week. So we are banged up. Gavin Holmes, I'm not sure what he is, but he is hurt as well. We'll see if he plays in this game. So hopefully we get Ryan Watts back because for one thing, he's probably our best cover corner. He's our most physical guy in the secondary, and he's our best tackler in the secondary other than Jalen Catalon. I think those two are 1-2 in physicality and tackling when healthy, but Ryan Watts has been way more healthy in his career than Jalen Catalon. There's a good chance, guys, Jalen Catalon comes back, hits someone hard, and he's out for the rest of the season. That was his thing with the NFL. That's why he didn't go to the NFL. The NFL told him, you are too physical. And we've seen, I'm a Broncos fan. I just saw Kareem Jackson get suspended for a hit. 5 years ago, would have got fined, but you wouldn't have got suspended. 10 years ago, you wouldn't even have gotten fined for. So Jalen Catalon, if he can't play in the NFL because of his injuries, he may not be able to play because he's so physical. So we'll see what happens with him the rest of the year. On the BYU defense, let's talk about their defense now. They got Max Tooley and Okay, I'm gonna butcher this name because it's very hard to spell, but I know he's a Utah State transfer, and I talked about him in the preseason. He's a very good player. He's going to play in the NFL. AJ Vongabachana, 46 tackles. He's second in tackles for loss with 3.5. And Max Tooley and him are really good studs at the linebacker position. They are the two leading tacklers on the team. I really like AJ. I'm not going to try to pronounce the last name again, but he flies around the football. He's always around the ball. In the games I've watched, and a couple of the games I've just like rewatched and looked at some highlights. And then you also have Jacob Robinson. So they're the three leading tacklers all at the linebacker position. So that's who you need to look out for. And then Tyler Beatty on the defensive line. He's got 1.5 sacks, 5 sacks and he's also first in tackles for loss. So he's first in sacks and tackles for loss. So he's someone you got to look at on the defensive end position that can get pressure on our quarterback. And I think the key to this game, guys, I think Malik Murphy has to throw the ball maximum. Like the max I want him throwing it is 25 times. That's the max you can allow Malik Murphy to throw the ball. I think if Texas is going to run away with this, Malik Murphy needs to be under 25 passes. I think you need to have 5 to 10 scripted plays that are just perfect setup for him to have a completion. Then I think you're going to have 5 to 10 plays that are going to, if you can make a decent throw, you're going to have a completion. Then I think there's going to be 5 to 10 plays where he's going to have to make something. Steve Sarkisian is going to challenge him. Hey, guess what? You're going to have to make a read here. And if you make the right read, then that'll be successful. So I'm hoping Malik can come in and play well, guys, but you never know. It's his first start. It is at home, so that's going to help. But again, a guy that hasn't really played, has had injury issues. He was banged up coming into the Houston game as a backup. It's really going to be a big deal to see how he starts and then also keeping his throws limited. I think you're going to have to ride Jonathan Brooks, like I said, after the Houston game. I believe Jonathan Brooks is our best player. I think Jonathan Brooks is our best player on offense. I think he's our best option on offense, whether that be in the pass game or the running game. I think you have to rely on, in my opinion, the best running back in the country, Jonathan Brooks. Also, I would like to see more AD Mitchell. I think we need to use him when we do get into the red zone of jump balls to get touchdowns, because we do still struggle in the red zone. We were better versus Houston, but again, they're terrible on defense. So I'm not really going to judge our team based off that. I think BYU this week, TCU, and especially Iowa State. That game's going to continue to scare me because it's at Iowa State. They play a 3-3-5, and we have struggled in the Steve Sarkisian era beating the 3-3-5 defense. That's just something that he has not cracked the code to. I don't know why. I'm hoping at some point he figures it out. And maybe, again, I don't have access to all 22 film. Maybe it is Quinn Ewers not willing to make the throws. Maybe Malik Murphy will be able to risk some of those throws and make those throws. We'll have to see, guys. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in this game. I do think Texas wins this game. I'm pretty confident in that. I thought they'd beat Houston worse than they did. I said 41-16. They won 31-24. In this game, I'm going to go Texas 34, BYU 20. I think BYU gets 20 points. I would not shock me if they score a defensive touchdown this game or a special teams touchdown, but we'll have to see. Again, guys, I think Texas wins this game 34-20, and I think we get back on the right side of things. And hopefully with Malik Murphy, he doesn't play more than a couple weeks, guys, because we do play Kansas State next, and that's going to be, honestly, that's a de facto Big 12 championship game, because the winner of that is in full control. If you win out, heck, you can lose a game if you win the Kansas State game next week. So Texas, your big game, got to win this one, and the next week is the biggest game of the year, in my opinion, because if you win that game, you can lose a game, and you'll still be fine. If you lose that game, you're probably not even going to get to the Big 12 championship game. So it's going to be very interesting, guys. Again, I think Texas wins 34-20. Can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. Thank you for joining me, guys. Hook 'em.